Thank you, Rabbi, also for pronouncing correctly my last name, which is Migliore. Usually people say Miglione, but Miglione is quantity and Migliore is quality, and I prefer quality. Well, congratulations are certainly in order for the distinguished author of the book launched on this occasion, Mr. Alexander Mashkevich. And I'm particularly pleased that the John Paul II Wellspring of Freedom Award is conferred today upon Mr. Mashkevich. An ancient Middle Eastern story tells of a traveler in a desert who at a certain point notices in the distance a horrible and violent monster that is making its way toward him. Obviously, the traveler is frightened. As the monster gets closer, the traveler, on seeing him more clearly, notices that it is not a monster, but a man, an ugly man, but a man nonetheless. After a while, the traveler begins to see him better and realizes in the end that the man is not that ugly at all. And finally, when he looks into the man's eyes, he recognizes him as his brother. Well, in our day, globalization makes peoples, cultures, civilizations meeting each other as in that desert night where the human silhouette is completely distorted. The insidious desert in which we walk and the deceiving night which has fallen indiscriminately upon all are not new phenomena. Rather, their roots go back to an ancient history marked by long periods of incomprehension, rivalry, and at times very violent oppression, yet interspersed with intervals of peaceful coexistence and mutual cooperation at all levels. Well, I fully share Alexander Mashkevich's conviction that it is most important to find impetus for convergence among societies rather than maintain disparate groups. And I could not agree more with the author when he maintains that the important thing is to identify common areas within the roots of civilizations and among their interchanges in order to overcome destructive conflicts and join forces in solving urgent global problems in the areas of ecology, economy, sociology. It has been noted that cultural fragmentation is a human and historical phenomenon that dates as far back as the biblical account of the Tower of Babel. Nevertheless, for a number of reasons and events, it is particularly evident today. In my 6 years at the United Nations, I can say that the air that one breathes daily at the United Nations is often polluted with national interests that impede not only decisions on challenges and current priorities, such as security, peace, and development, but at times also decisions on smaller things. There is an ever-growing opinion, even if it is difficult to accept, that the climate of distrust, fear, and threat that exists between the West and the rest, as Roger Scruton puts it in his insightful book by the same title, is due more to non-existent relations or to the reluctant will to understand beyond the proper cultural or religious schemes than to any real and seemingly insurmountable cultural or religious differences. It is due, well, the question of recognizing universal principles, universal rights in view of cultural diversity has resurfaced. Some maintain that all rights are culturally relative. Others claim that universal rights are just instruments of a given cultural imperialism. Some believe that the gulf between those two positions cannot be breached. The principal framers of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights were from the premise that certain values are so fundamental that they can find support in the moral and philosophical traditions of all cultures. For that reason, such universal principles or basic human rights are undeniable. At their essential core, they must be universally recognized and be operative, erga omnes. To maintain the idea that basic rights are universal, however, does not require one to reject a legitimate pluralism in their implementation. Quite the contrary, pluralism is the only way to move beyond a sterile relativism, imperialism debate. The framework fashioned by the drafters of the Universal Declaration is flexible enough to allow for differences in emphasis and implementation, but not so malleable as to permit any basic human right to be completely eclipsed or unnecessarily subordinated for the sake of other rights. Very soon we will celebrate at the United Nations the 60th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and I think that this is a source of thought and of a line of conduct that can help us today in our debate on intercultural and inter-civilizational dialogue. Thank you.